Hello and welcome to another episode of the I'll Try That podcast. I'm Barbara and joining me this week is Joe. Say hi, Joe.
Ahoy hoy.
And this week our pursuit of hoppiness is Stiegl Radler Grapefruit, to be precise. So stay tuned for some more information on that later on. But we have first of all, the small matter of the hop topic, for which I will pass over to my learned colleague Joe. Joe, hit me with some knowledge.
Well, for this week's hop topic, I actually don't have some great news. So Jennings Brewery has closed its doors after 200 years of brewing history.
Oh, just not what you want to hear.
Which is obviously not great. You don't like to start off the episode on a bit of a downer. But I thought it was important to kind of shed a light on this, given the fact that Jennings Brewery have been operating as a brewery for 200 years. I mean, that is an incredible achievement in itself.
Innings, yeah.
So, give credit where credit's due that, 200 years in operation and brewing history is just phenomenal.
Indeed. But at the same time, I mean, every brewery is going to have a life cycle, isn't it? I mean, there are lots who are still going, even with, a little bit longer than that. But all good things must come to an end as well. Was it just their time, do we think? Was it recent market forces or major global events, I suppose, might have played a part?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of everything that you've just mentioned there, basically. So Jennings Brewery is from Cockermouth in Cumbria. And it's still kind of operating in some respects because they do make a beer called a Cumberland Cask Ale, which is being moved to a site in Staffordshire. So it is going to be moving, there is going to still be this Cumberland Cask Ale, but the site of Jennings Brewery is shutting down. So Jennings Brewery is owned by Carlsberg Marston's Brewing Company. That's the merger of Carlsberg UK and Marston's, in the UK. So there's a big deal here. And basically they've said that, they've blamed the decision to shut the site has been based on the pandemic and the current economic crisis. So, it's kind of a bit of I don't know, it's nothing too specific, right? They're just kind of blaming a few big things. There isn't one specific thing that they're saying it's on, but there is hope, and this is a kind of, I'm quoting here the Real Ale campaigner Stephen Walker here, that he would be that it would be wonderful if the site could carry on as a brewery. So maybe that can happen. Maybe someone will come in and take over on the site and purchase the site and continue using it as a brewery, but it is a bit disappointing, obviously, that this site that's been used for, has been brewing beer for 200 years, could potentially no longer be working.
It's a shame when any brewing history goes, isn't it?
Although I was rather surprised out of this whole story, obviously, the history behind it, and, I can go into the details here about, there's, I can see some photos of some flooding, which is obviously helps their whole, economic crisis that they had back in 2009. And they can tell you that they've, put it up on the market for 750,000. But the one fact here, or factoid, that's kind of stuck out to me is the fact that with the closure of this site, that 5 jobs have been lost.
Only 5?
5 jobs. That was my reaction as well, Barbara. It was not to discredit those 5 jobs that have been lost, but I was expecting a lot more from a brewery that's been operating for 200 years.
And I mean, so I actually just side by side with that. I think, did you say that it was listed at first for 750 grand? When you said 750, I mean, actually, I don't know too much about the scale of the operation there anyway, but I don't know. I think I heard Carlsberg in the background. I was like, oh God, it'd be like 750 million or something like that. And then I was like, no, I know it is a small operation than that, but, 750,000 is, I mean, I get that those premises can't be completely huge. So, I mean, that kind of, to me, gives a bit of context as to why, that might be the level of staffing. But then, I would have thought for such a significant chunk of heritage to just be sort of still currently going with 5 people. Yeah, I thought you were going to say more than that, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the site itself, from the photos I'm seeing, looks, historic. It looks quite big. It's not insignificant. It's not like you're buying someone's shed or something in Putney, which I could definitely see a shed in Putney going for 750,000. This is still in Staffordshire after all, which is not, a rundown part of the world. It's a substantial plot that you're potentially getting your bang for your buck. I think, I kind of mentioned there that there had been some flooding issues in 2009. And I think that this article is citing that is potentially one of the issues for new buyers, is the fact that there is the potential of flooding, because this brewery is like right on the banks of the Cockermouth, which is apparently a river in Staffordshire.
Okay. Yeah. The thing is, that's one where... Oh, yeah, no, I'm tuning into climate change as well. Flooding certain areas, it's only anticipated to get worse, really, isn't it? So that's going to put a few people off from that sort of planning.
Yeah, but, let's hope. Hey, if you're out there and you're kicking around with, $750,000 thinking of the next brewery, investment opportunity, then, hey, Jennings is up on the market. And, they're looking for some investment. And, it would be a shame to see a brewing site that was established back in, 1828. The original Jennings Brewery was founded. It would be a shame if that kind of lineage didn't survive. Let's put it that way.
I sound like everyone's sort of kind of cliched history teacher now, but I'm like, imagine how different life was in 1828, and like the beer kept going like the whole time. But that's mad. Yeah, I mean,
talking about history nerds, I was literally just looking at an infographic showing how the Americas was purchased in different stages, and actually in 1828 they didn't even own Florida from the Spanish. They had to purchase that a bit later on.
That's it.
Yeah. Like the 1830s or something, they purchased Florida. It's like, what?
That is weird, like installment based buying, isn't it? It's just I'm thinking about, it's almost like when someone's talking about like renovating their home. Thinking about having that knocked through. We're thinking about having a Florida put on.
Our neighbour, they're kind of leaving, so we're just going to buy their end of the road, end of their plot of land, and just add it onto ours. Florida. We'll
get some men in, get some infrastructure built, all that sort of thing. But no, that's cool. But do you know what? I just side note, just finished up on Jennings. A small consolation, I'm sure, but also I didn't know that there was this the Cumberland cask about, though. So if that's about, I'm sort of almost going to feel almost like obliged to. I want to, but also I think I'm going to have to try and give that a try as well, just as a bit of a tip of the cap to Jennings and one chapter sadly closing.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Cumberland's still going, and you'll be buying into the Carlsberg Marston's, kind of behemoth that is we have now in the UK. But hey, it's still it's still being created, it's still being brewed. So let's say the beer isn't being lost, but the brewery itself is gone. So that's a shame.
Yeah, the bricks and mortar going. Okay, well. Hopefully we'll move into Pursuit of Hoppiness, be a bit more cheery.
Hopefully a bit more upbeat.
Yeah, so I mean, we're ultimately this does remain a beer news and reviews podcast, but actually we did happen upon Stiegl, which who I understand are Austrian brewer, who do deal in beer products, but we have focused on, I think from a lot of previous episodes, we said we wanted to have a look at this. Drabbers, I think in particular, had been keenly recommending that we try a Radler. So that's what we've both got hold of today. The Stiegl Radler grapefruit flavoured. Other Stiegl products are available, but I've, just as a sign up, we had a bit of a chat before we came on. I've already nearly finished mine. So I don't know if it was because I was thirsty. I've just eminently quaffable. This is again a Radler, which I should also probably point out for some context. I think this is my first time ever trying a Radler, and so it's basically what the hell have I got here? So it's beer and like it's beyond a shandy, isn't it? It's kind of more fruity than a shandy. Is that,
yeah, so you're absolutely spot on, because I was trying to determine what is the difference between a Radler and a shandy. So a shandy is a beer that's usually like a light blonde lager that's mixed with lemonade or like lemon lime soda, and that's usually like a 50-50 mix. So you'll get like so you get like or you can get bitter shandies as well, right? Where it's like the bitter drink with a lemonade. That's quite popular here in the UK, but I think lager shandies have become more popular in recent years. But yeah, it's usually a 50-50 mix. Whereas a Radler, outside of Radler being the German word for cyclist, it also is kind of like
Yes,
it's a kind of a citrusy beer concoction. So you'll usually find it mixed with lots of different kind of fruits, but the one we're having and most popular, I guess, is this Stiegl Radler Grapefruit. So yeah, I mean, they say that actually, it is the perfect post-ride beverage, a Radler, which makes sense because it's been given the name of a cyclist.
Yeah, I had heard of that before, and it was always just a big assumption from me. I suppose if you've like really clocked up the mileage on a ride, and I'm not much of a cyclist myself, but you don't want to go into like even as much as 4%, quench your thirst. You want something that's more relaxed, and actually you can see why. Yeah, this is more thirst quenching, isn't it? Very very grapefruity as well, though. But also, I'm finding I quite like it's not. Every time I have anything grapefruit, it seems to be really like quite sharp. Whereas this is actually it's got a nice sort of sweetness to it as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think go back to what you're saying. I mean, it's a 2%, but it's also in a big can, so it kind of feels like maybe in a small can after you've like had a long cycle or whatever. Maybe a small can like a 330ml just wouldn't quite cut it. It wouldn't give you enough of a thirst quench. Whereas I feel like this bigger can, the 440ml, it's actually an 11. It's actually a 11.2 ounce. A 16.9 ounce can for our American listeners. That's 500 milliliters.
I was going to say you're not talking my language there for a minute. I know we've got Imperial, but I was like a what? I was thinking definitely 500 mil.
Yeah, so a 500 ml can. So it's a big can, but actually I feel like people would get this quaffable 2%. Get it down you.
Maybe. Does that also like maybe justify a slightly longer break, between stages of the Tour de France or whatever it is you're doing? Because also you don't want to. Yeah, you're going to need a bit of a break because I would keep thinking of it. I've got a real image in my head of these cyclists, proper lycra, and doing like hundreds of kilometres. It's not going to be a day, is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I hadn't really come across Stiegl before. I'm glad you started first by pronouncing the name because I've just been following that since you talked about it. But
Stiegl, I'm fairly confident on Stiegl, so let's roll with that. And
let's keep going. So I didn't actually know anything about them. And I was always wondering why this weird little, you've got the Stiegl like kind of graphic, let's say, like the typeface, how it's written is obviously ownable to them. But then they've got like this like chart, looks like a bar chart of some description kind of going upwards underneath.
I wasn't sure if it was, either a bit bar chart or like steps.
Well, you're spot on because Stiegl apparently means small steps. So it originates from the founding of the brewery house, so the small steps that lead up to the brew house. And that's where Stiegl came from. And, from this brew house in Salzburg.
Now, my A-level German's gradually coming back to me now.
There you go.
It wasn't a very good grade, it's got to be said. But that makes sense now. That's quite cool. And also it's a nod to their history as well.
Yeah, it totally. Totally. But yeah, it feels like that, they do, Salzburg, I don't know too much about the Salzburg area, in Germany, in Austria, I should say. But the fact that this kind of, the style has been around, they're saying this brew house since, there's been very specific here in this article of June the 16th, 1492. The brew house in Salzburg was first mentioned in a written document. So, that's pretty impressive.
That sounds like it was also like a really underground thing up until that point as well. They didn't say that it was what was it, incorporated or something like that. I mean, it would have been a little bit different back then, but just saying that it was first mentioned in a document sounds like there was word on the street. There's this brewery, but no, we don't talk about it. Yeah, if you know about Stiegl, first rule of Stiegl Club is you don't talk about.
It's all right. So we kind of mentioned there that this brew house, this Stiegl, this Salzburg brewery, has been going for over 525 years. And it's been, privately owned as the Stiegl Brewery, for that whole time, which is pretty incredible. I think the fact that it hasn't been like taken over by some massive conglomerate is pretty interesting. It's still kind of privately owned, still pushed out there. I'm not noticing, let's put it this way, the fact that it's like owned by a Heineken or something. Like, it feels like it's still, from what I'm looking at, it's still owned by a privately owned organisation.
Yeah, indeed.
I don't know if you've been able to find anything.
I was just trying to have a look at that as well, but it just weirdly, it's just started jumping out to me also that, like, because he's saying, they're saying a family since 1492. What I'm finding a bit odd about that is also I'm thinking, like, geographically as well. Salzburg, I think, is sort of more eastern Austria. Like, we don't seem to have covered that many beers from that area, well, from Austria as a whole, I would say. And you think where it is in Europe, and like with all the beer that's made around it, like all those beers we've looked at from almost like a circle around Austria. That we haven't seen that many, really. So is it just... I'm wondering if it's also one of those classic cases of the Austrians making really good beer. Actually, the one I always used to hear about was actually in the Swiss making really good wine, but they actually just don't export it, and they just very much enjoy...
it themselves.
Enjoy it locally. Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
That's probably the case as well. But because Stiegl have got a hell of a range of beers.
Tell me. So what else do they have? They've got obviously we're trying this Radler, and I can see they've got different flavors of Radlers, like lemon and stuff like that. But what else do they do?
I'm looking at a list of what's this, like a dozen. Goldbrow, Hell, Hell's, I guess, Pills. Also, there's also the
lagers,
Radler's got the it's a lemon Zitrone, and then I think raspberry, isn't it? Himbeere, I think. There's a Weiss, and then there's a sport.
Good German knowledge here.
Yeah, Weiss, which is a wheat or white. But there's also sport Weiss. I've got to not have
sport Weiss. Yeah. What is sport Weiss?
That's the one I wanted to talk about. I was like, it's one of those... I'm sure it was a weird half-baked concoction idea we had a while ago about, a beer as a sports drink.
That is quite literally Erdinger's whole approach to their non-alcoholic. He's calling it like a sport drink or something, an isotonic sport drink. And then I can't believe Stiegl have actually gone the whole... They've only gone and done it, Barbara, and they've called it a sport drink.
That is... it is the alcohol-free one, I think. Actually, wow. Sorry, I'm going to just correct myself here, but it's just because I'm continuing to roll off all of these other ones. But again, Stiegl's description: isotonic sports drink, reduced calories.
Incredible.
So I think the idea is it tastes quite beery, but is absolutely fine for you to take a bottle to the gym, presumably, or after you've played five-a-side. I don't know. I think even if someone had... I don't think I could even actually drink Lucozade out of... knowing it's coming out of a beer bottle, But yeah, again, the list goes on. A Bock, or is it actually a bio Bock? And then there's a couple of other... They also do... like a separate range of alcohol frees, and actually they've started on a range of craft beers as well. So actually we would just get you always get bored if I just keep listing all these different ones. So I think they would even pass the Drabber's craft beer certification as well, because they've got beers coming out their ears.
Well, they don't even just do beers, Barbara. That's what I'm finding more about this Stiegl company. So obviously, what more do you want from, a wide range of different types of beers, as you've just listed there. What does every beer lover want? Well, of course, they want some beer-flavoured mustard. Obviously, that's just what they want.
Oh man, I was going to say a bottle opener, some glassware.
Because you're in luck because they've got all of that.
Beer-flavoured mustard just goes without saying. Why would you even need to...
Absolutely.
No, really? Beer-flavoured mustard?
Beer-flavoured mustard. But you're absolutely spot on. They also have all that wide range of different accessories. They have a whole section under fashion where you can buy Stiegl jumpers, Stiegl, like, tops. There's a whole sports section, so to go with your sport vice that you're going to be having.
Yeah.
They've got sports attire. They've also got Stiegl jeans, so you can get jeans in the Stiegl brand.
Stiegl jeans sounds like it would be like a good jeans.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
You can get a Stiegl-looking cowboy hat as well.
Nice.
Because that's what you want.
This is just... I think I said this when we were talking about Pinter the other week, but I think this is my Christmas shopping. It's just all going to be all under one roof, isn't it?
It goes on and on. You can get a Stiegl cushion to go on your sofa that you can hug at night to think of how much you love Stiegl.
For God's sake. Wow.
There's loads. The list goes on. There's plenty of things.
They have covered everything. Blimey. Right, okay.
Not to mention the mugs. I haven't even got to the mugs. Obviously, there's classic glassware, but there is the kind of the Austrian-style mugs, which I'm obsessed with. These look incredible.
I'm so glad you happened upon these. They do look good, actually. I should say this is good because also after I'd run through all their beers, I was glad that we have happened upon these other things that they offer as well. Because I did mean to say a lot of the old beer cliches applies with these guys. So also, if you do look into them, you will hear all about. Liking to use the best raw ingredients, genuine craftsmanship, and all that sort of thing. So it's not. I say that never ever to question it or say it's not true, but it is. It's that thing that we see plenty of. So still applies here as well.
So yeah, I mean, gosh, Stiegl. It seems like it's a lifestyle brand more than just a brewery nowadays. You can really dive into the whole, Austrian feel. You can get Stiegl trekking poles, because just to go on your walk, go for your trekking, walking with your poles, nice. And then you have your Radler at the end of it.
Fair play. I feel like this has also been a bit of a voyage of discovery for us. So, I mean, and also with all of this stuff that they kind of produce, I'm getting more and more. I think I'm getting more familiar here, and also getting the impression that I imagine they're at where they are through having success domestically, and we don't. And actually, it's just not one that sort of that translates to us much here in the UK beyond the Radler, which I've got to say. Again, is one of those ones, as we mentioned, what was it, our 2% ale that we tried recently. As long as you're prepared for what this is, don't think that when you pick this up, which actually I think to a certain extent the unsuspecting could pick it up and think it's something a little more crafty. You do have to pay a little bit of attention when you're buying your beer, whatever happens. But as long as you're on board with the fact that it's a Radler and you go through the first couple, I think you'll be like, yeah, no, that's eminently drinkable. I think it's also it's a warm weather beer, isn't it? That's not going to be a big revelation to anyone, and it's going to have to be served cold. But get ready for that. It ticks its box very well, I think.
What I'm trying to think of other beers that I can compare it against. Obviously, we said Shandy's. And there isn't as far as I'm aware, a very well known brand that just only does Shandy's or something. Or does they do a well range of Shandy's in a can or something. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but. The beer that springs to mind, or the brand that springs to mind, we've done actually quite recently, which is Jubel, or Jubel.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that a lot, actually.
There's also kind of a fruity beer. And they have a range of beers. One of them happens to be a grapefruit, which tastes quite similar to this Radler, I must say, from Stiegl. But, they also have an elderflower as well. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's interesting also because, Salzburg, I don't think is technically Alpine, but it's an Alpine part of the world, isn't it? And that's where the Jubel thing came from. And there's is an outright beer, isn't it? But actually, I was going to say that it's funny that I'm casting my mind back to having that Jubel. I don't think it would. I think those were about 4%, but weirdly, they don't taste that much stronger than this. From what,
No, I agree with you.
I'm thinking. So I'm a little bit like also if you'd call yourself an old school hardcore beer drinker and were going for something like this, kind of with the view to having the lower percentage, Stiegl would always be the one you go for, I think. But again, it's probably not for the hardcore beer drinkers, as I've just sort of described. But that is a good comparison. I totally see where you're coming from now. I'm going to have another sip and just confirm my thinking. But yeah, I think you're right.
So, I mean, while we're kind of just sipping on that one, I'll give you some numbers. So, Stiegl UK on Instagram have 1.5k followers, but Stiegl Brau, which is their Austrian Instagram, has 25k followers.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then Twitter, Stiegl UK has 635 followers, and Stiegl Brauerei, sorry, I've butchered that.
For you to say.
They've got 4k followers on Twitter. So, hey, it's they also have Instagram and Twitters for the US as well. I think that's another market they're really trying to push the beer into. I could see this going down well in the US as well.
Yeah, I would have thought that as well. But that's good. That makes me feel quite vindicated of what I was saying, in that actually I'm quite liking your work, Stiegl. But it's obviously as you said, and also an Austrian lifestyle beer sort of thing, isn't it? So it's probably reflected in the numbers a bit.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a couple of, I can't wait for my Stiegl cushion to come over Christmas. That'll be great.
Well, I feel, John, I'm going to go away and try and get hold of the Stiegl Gold Brow, which actually, to my mind, looks to be the kind of flagship one. So, because if they've got this big, long range of beers, I'm guessing it's off a bit of success of a particular one as well as the Radler. So I'm quite keen to give that a go, because this is a very polished product, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're excited for the Gold Brow. I'm excited for my hiking poles to arrive.
Again, that's you're on the verge of doing another podcast, aren't
you? Branded merch.
Cast. Gotta come up with a better name than that.
And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe, Rich,
Barbara,
and Simo,
goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram,
Twitter,
I'll try that podcast.com,
and watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now.